Hello. So welcome back to my YouTube channel, Biology with Miss Rinky. So now let's get started. In the previous video, we had discussed about cell and its discovery. So to have a recap, we discussed as it was Robert Hooke who discovered cell, all right, in the Koch cells, which were actually dead cells, all right, only the cell wall was present. And further, we had discussed about Anton von Louis von Hooke, all right, who discovered the living cell. Now, further, let's understand about the various cell theory which was given by the various scientists. Okay, so there were two scientists which were there. Okay, when it started with cell theory. Okay, and there was this Swan. Okay, who was a zoologist, and there was a botanist whose name was Clyden. Okay, being a botanist, he obviously gave theory with respect to plants, and being a zoologist, Swan gave his theory respected to animal cells. All right. And now let's understand what exactly were the various pointers which they had to mention about the cell theory. And since we are studying about cell, okay, as I had discussed, what is biology? Okay, let's understand what is, if you study about cell, what do you call it as? So yes, study about cell, since we're studying, and in the next few coming up lectures as well, videos, we're going to study about cell. So what exactly is the study of cell called as? Okay, as you all know, the word cell, okay, means site. Okay, so study of cell is called as what? Cytology. Okay, and what made it interesting to study about cytology, okay, or what cell was, because of the various microscopes which were discovered. All right, so the compound and the electron microscopes which were there, that actually made easier to understand the detailed structure and the functions of the cell. All right, so now coming back to cell theory. Okay, so coming to cell theory, all right. So I'm going to just point out about, okay, the invention of the compound and electron microscopes that reveal the structural details of the cell. Okay, and I'm going to mention of these two very important scientists, that Malthus Clyden, okay, who was a botanist, all right, and Theodore Swan, who was a zoologist. Okay, they both were the ones which who formulated the cell theory. Okay, so very important to note, Malthus Clyden, which was there, all right, Malthus Clyden, which was there, he was the one in the year 1838, okay, gave what the cell theory. Okay, and obviously, what was he studying about? He was studying about what? Plant cells, right? And since he was studying about the plant cells, he said that, what did he say? That the plants which are there, all right, are composed of what? Cells, right? Now, let's write down the various points which you will already know about the cell theory, or I'm sure you know these are the facts about any cell, right? So let's dive into it and let's study the various pointers. Okay, what are the various points which we need and we know about cell theory? Let's start with something very simple. Okay, obviously, that is what? All living organisms are made up of cells. Okay, fine. Another important point to know, as you know, is a cell, which is the basic. That's what I started my first video all about. That is a cell, which is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Yes. Further, as we know, all right, the cell is responsible for all what the metabolic activities. Now, what is metabolic activity? For example, say protein synthesis is taking place in our cells, all right, or whatever fuel which we have used is broken down to produce energy, all right. So that is nothing but what? Metabolism. So basically, its role is what? Metabolic activity. Okay, I'm going to mention about this more in the first unit of NCERT when I do. Metabolic activity basically involves two things: catabolism, which is breaking down, okay? For example, food you consume is broken down to produce energy. That is called as catabolism, all right? And whenever anything is being produced, say protein is being synthesized in your body, okay? Or for example, plant cells produce food by process of photosynthesis. That is called as what? Anabolism. So the metabolic activity which are there takes place what? Inside the cell. Coming further ahead, obviously, be it a plant cell or animal cells, what is going to be present in all of them is what? Cell membrane, which any cell has a cell membrane. It has nucleus and the cytoplasm, right? Fine. Further, what else will the cell have? Apart from cell, will be made up of what? Its cell organelles. What will the cell be made up of? Cell organelles, right? So these are the main basic points of what? Cell theory, okay? Now further ahead, all right, it's very interesting to know, all right, that Swan, all right, Schwann, which was there, Schwann, who was a zoologist, he was actually, studying the bone cells, okay? What was he studying? The bone cells, okay? And if like for example, okay, I'm just going to sketch like a very rough diagram, okay? So when he was saying about the bone cells, okay, so if I tell you, okay, what is a bone made up of? You will tell me, okay, bone cells. I'm not going into the details of what are the names of the bone cells. We'll be doing that in animal tissues. But it will be what? It will be made up of bone cells, right? So I'm just going to sketch, okay? So this is a cell which will have the bone cells, okay? There'll be bone cells, right? And what else will be present there, okay? So you will say that apart from that, okay, your answer will be, what is the bone cell made up of? You'll be surely heard this. It is made up of what? So I'm drawing that in light blue here and there, okay? So the answer is what? That it is made up of what? Calcium and what? Phosphate, right? So apart from cells, what else is making it? Calcium and phosphate is present, right, in your bone cells, right? So he modified some cell theory. What did Schwann? He modified the cell theory when he looked at the bone cell. That cells are made up of, any organism is made up of what? Cells, all right, and its secretions, okay? Means it is the bone cells which are secreted with substance, calcium phosphate, all right? So the cell theory which was there was what? Modified, okay? So let's understand, go back to that slide. Schwann in the year 1839, okay, said that what? The cells have a thin outer layer, and what is that outer layer known as? Plasma membrane. This is your lines of your NCERT, remember. And he also found that plant cells, as you know, have what? Cell wall. Further important point to know what Schwann said. Schwann said he proposed a hypothesis that animals and plants which are there are composed of what? Cells and products of cells. So for example, in the bone cell, it is what? Bone which is there, okay? The bone is made up of what? Bone cells and the product of cell. What is the product of the cell in that? Calcium phosphate. So the theory what was little modified, in which he proposed what? A hypothesis that animal and plants are composed of what? Cells and products of cells. All right, that's what we looked at the example of the bone, all right, which is made up of bone cells and its product, which is calcium phosphate. Got it? Now a question came in wherein somebody asked, okay, there are many people who asked, okay, so explain, how is a cell formed? Now for this, Clyden and Swan didn't have an answer. What Swan said? Spontaneously means suddenly some matter comes together and forms a new cell, okay? So basically, he didn't have an answer to how exactly what a cell is being formed, all right? So later came one more scientist, okay? Later, all right, there was one more scientist who came in, all right? And What did he do? Okay, he had an answer. He found the answer of how exactly a cell is formed. All right, so let's look as to what would it he have to say. His name was Rudolf Virchow. Okay, his name was what? Rudolf Virchow. Okay, now what did he do? He just kept observing cells. Okay, now obviously when you, even if you observe a cell, what will you say? That a cell which is there has a nucleus. Then what does it have? It will have the membrane and the organelles. Then further what he saw that the cell which is there, okay, now it has increased in size, okay, and what did it have? It had what? Nucleus. Okay, it had it what? Its own what? Nucleus. Fine, which has divided. Fine, further ahead, okay, when it was there, he saw now it has given rise to what? Two cells. What? It has given rise to what? Two cells. This is something which he had what? Observed. All right, now when you look at a cell, you will say it has the nucleus. Okay, the nucleus is the core part of the cell. It is the core part of the cell. Since it is the core, you call it as what? Carrion. Okay, what do you call the core at the nucleus as what? Carrion. Okay, nucleus is called as what? Carrion. Fine. So in this cell, what did he saw? He saw that formation is called as kinesis. Formation is called as what? Kinesis. So what did he see? Karyokinesis is taking place. Fine. Further ahead, what he saw now, the splitting of cytoplasm is taking place. Okay. So that process which is there, okay, that when cytoplasm divides, you call it as what? Cytokinesis. What do you call it as? Cytokinesis. All right. Now, okay, I have a question. Why is the cytoplasm of the cell called as cytoplasm? Why can't you call just water or anything like that? You know, the reason is the fluid part, all right? Cytokinase. Why is it called as cytoplasm? Okay, that is what cell which was there. Okay, the cytoplasm which is there tends to what? Divide, all right? After nuclear division has taken place, okay? After nuclear division has taken place, now what you have is the cytoplasm divides. Fine. So cytokinesis will take place. Why is it called as cytoplasm? Cyte means cell, plasm means the fluid, all right? The fluid part of the cell, that's why it is called as what? Cytoplasm. And nucleus is the core, that is why it's called as carrion, all right? And for nuclear division is called as karyokinesis, okay? Cytoplasm was the fluid part of the cell, so called as cytokinesis. So what did he observe? That a cell is dividing, okay, and giving rise to two cells. So he came up with a very important statement which is finally accepted. And what did he say? He came up in Latin by the sentence which says omnis cellula a cellula. Okay, means every cell which is there comes from the pre-existing cell. Now you may have a doubt, what about the very first cell? Now, how exactly was the very first cell formed? It was all by fluke, and that's what the chapter is there in 12th standard, that is evolution, wherein we study how the very first cell was formed. But in ideally, what exactly happens? That what Swan said spontaneously, it is nothing like that. Every cell comes from the pre-existing cell. That is what he had to say, and that is what was actually accepted, all right, in the cell theory. Okay, so that's the final modern cell theory which was accepted, wherein Rudolf Virchow in the year 1855 explained that cells divide and new cells come from pre-existing cells. Okay, omnicellula acellula was the statement which meant by Rudolf Virchow. He modified the cell theory. What was it? All living organisms are composed of cells and products of cells, which was the hypothesis meant by Schwann, which was accepted For example, was the bone cell what he studied, right? So cells and products of cells. And another important statement which was given by Virchow looking at the cell division, that all cells which are there arise from what? Pre-existing cells. So this video was about what? Cell theory, right? In the next video, we will study about the various exceptions to cell theory. Until you meet in the next video, see to it that you revise this particular topic from your NCERT textbook. If you have really liked my video, share and subscribe. Thank you.